Welcome to the Happier and Healthier podcast. I'm your host, Maria Marlowe, and this is a place where we don't rely on good luck or good genes for our health and happiness, but rather we create it with our thoughts and our actions each and every single day. Each week, I'll bring you a thought or a guest that will help you live your happiest and healthiest life. Are you ready? Welcome back to the Happier and Healthier podcast. Today's guest is a really good friend of mine, Liana Werner Gray, who is the author of The Earth Diet and 10-Minute Recipes. She is an amazing resource of information about all things health and wellness. She grew up in Australia, but had a pretty scary health scare that caused her to really rethink her diet. She grew up on a ton of junk food and processed foods, but then she had a health scare and totally turned her life around. And she has just such an incredible and inspiring story. So I'm looking forward to having her share that story with you and having her share her tips on healthy eating and all of the non-food factors that affect our health as well. Liana, thanks for being here.
Hi, Maria. Thank you so much for having me.
So I love your story, and I think we both have kind of a similar story in that we grew up on processed and junk foods, and it wasn't until we got a little bit older and had a health scare that it made us turn it around. And I think there's this huge misconception. I think a lot of times people will view us now and all our green juices and healthy meals and healthy Instagrams and think, oh, they must have always been like this.
Yeah.
But definitely couldn't be further from the truth. So bring us back to the beginning. What is your story and how did you get into this whole healthy eating, healthy living path?
Yeah, well, I hit a rock bottom with my health and I ended up in hospital and I had a golf ball sized in my throat. And I was 21 at the time, so I was so young. And I had a biopsy done and the results came back and one of the doctors said, you have a stage 1 tumor in your lymphatic system. And so that was my point that I was like, wow, okay, now I actually have to change my diet because I knew that I should be eating better and I felt guilty for the 5 years that I was like binge eating on junk food. But this was really what stopped me and forced me to go, okay, I can either keep going down this track and I'm just going to get worse and sicker and, potentially die from this, or I can change my life. And so that was the day I decided, okay, I'm going to somehow change my diet, even though I'm really addicted to junk foods.
Now, so that's actually quite interesting. So when the doctor told you you had this golf ball sized tumor, did you then immediately know, or did he mention, or you just knew that, okay, maybe it's my unhealthy lifestyle that caused it? Or was it like, in the days and weeks and months afterwards, after researching that you thought maybe there's a connection?
I knew right away that it was because of my diet, because I felt so toxic. And I also knew from my upbringing, I grew up in outback Australia and I grew up surrounded by Indigenous people. And so from a young age, we were taught the proper ways to eat. We were taught how to go out into nature and take food straight from the earth, straight from nature, and that would provide us with the most nutrition possible. So as I was eating these junk foods, I felt guilty because I knew that I was getting no nutrition from it at all. So I was not surprised when I had the tumor in my throat and I knew it was because of my eating habits.
That's actually quite interesting because I feel like over here, and at least in my own personal story, I had no idea that my food was affecting anything other than weight. So that's pretty interesting that you already knew that and you already had that sort of education growing up. And so that's amazing that, okay, so you got the diagnosis, you decided to make the change. So what happened? Did you literally walk out of the doctor's office and never eat processed food again?
Well, I didn't know how to change my diet. All I knew is that I needed to and that I wanted to. So this is where the spiritual part came in and the other part of healing. So I basically just surrendered to the universe and I was like, okay, I have no idea how I'm going to eat healthy. I don't even know how it's possible. I don't know of healthy people on this planet. I don't know how I can never have gummy bears again and never have cookie dough, and how do I enjoy my favorite foods but still be healthy? So it was just like a mess and confusion. But I surrendered and I just kind of handed it all over to God. And then it was a little bit later, like time passed after I had kind of surrendered that I got the idea. And the idea that I had was to create a blog and call it the Earth Diet. And the Earth Diet was going to be a challenge for me to eat only foods that come straight from nature for 365 days. And the blog was going to hold me accountable. Because for the 5 years I tried to give up eating junk food. I was like, I'll try again on Monday. I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it on Monday. But I didn't tell anyone. So I just never stuck to it. So I thought the blog, this will really help me to stick to it. And so I did it, created the Earth Diet, and I knew it was the right thing because as soon as I got that answer, I felt so excited and I felt like, wow, yep, this is it. And I'm on a new path, and I was all of a sudden excited about all these new foods I was going to try and make recipes and explore, and it was just very exciting.
I love that you created the blog to hold yourself accountable, because that's something that I've definitely witnessed myself as well. It's so easy for us to break promises to ourselves, and unless we have a very strong reason, like a golf ball sized tumor, it's harder for us to keep our promises to ourselves than it is to keep promises to someone else. And I always, tell people, get your friends involved. Like if you want to embark on a healthier lifestyle, get a friend to do it with you or join some sort of group or club or class, because if you tell them you're going to meet them at the gym, you're probably going to show up at the gym. But if you're like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym by myself later, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, that's like our Sunday run club, our Juice Press run club. Like I wouldn't go running on a Sunday if I wasn't meeting you at Central Park at like 10 a.m.,
It's true. That's one of our, Liana and my favorite things to do on Sundays in the spring and the summer is to run in Central Park. And yeah, it's definitely there. Most mornings I don't actually want to go, but knowing that you're going to be there and we have a green juice at the end, it makes it much more fun and actually gets me there.
Yeah.
Okay, so first off, the Earth Diet. I think it's pretty self-explanatory exactly what it is, but can you just kind of run down what exactly is the Earth Diet?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Earth Diet, the whole concept of the book and the blog is just to focus on the earth and focus on nature and focus on everything that nature just provides naturally. So fruits and nuts, lots of berries and vegetables, and organic meats for the meat eaters. So it's very similar to paleo or the caveman diet, and it's basically just going back to nature and looking at nature rather than looking at processed foods.
Right. So yeah, I think the biggest factors would be eliminating the processed and refined foods and having the fresh foods. And I know you incorporate a lot of vegetables and plant-based foods primarily.
Yes, a lot of plant-based foods. I just feel like, you can't go wrong with eating more vegetables. Like whoever had,
too many vegetables
and was like, I feel so guilty. I had that whole plate of broccoli and carrots and just,
exactly.
It's good. Yeah.
So beyond the food factor, I'd love to talk a little bit more about the non-food factors that also contribute to our health, because I think that it's something that we forget. And I know on my journey as well, I started off with the food, and food was really pivotal into me changing my health and changing my life. But there was a period of time where I thought it was only the food that mattered for health. But, time went on, I got older, I had more experience. I realized there's so much beyond food that really contributes to our health. So what are some of the other ways or that we can heal ourselves and that are necessary in order for us to improve our health?
Yeah. Food for me improved my mental state, my emotional state, and my spirituality. So I did start with food, and that transformed all of the other areas of my life. But what I found to come along with food was affirmations for the mind. So just changing neural pathways, which do change when we start to eat real foods and different foods, as you know. Like as we start to eat more organic foods and fresh foods and whole foods, we start to naturally think, wow, I'm really taking care of myself. I'm really healthy. Like, look at all this good food that's going into my body. This is going to have a positive effect. So we just start naturally thinking all those positive thoughts and creating those new neural pathways in the brain to think more positively, naturally, with less effort. But in the beginning, we can also implement some more affirmations too, which I love to do. And I've included affirmations in the Earth Diet book and 10-minute recipes. They both have affirmations. So for example, if someone is wanting to heal their lungs or heal their eyes, or someone has cancer or diabetes, there are certain affirmations for those organs and for those certain areas.
Can you give us an example of an affirmation that you used?
Yeah, one that I used a lot and I still use today actually is, I'm safe. It's safe for me to be alive and I am loved.
I love that. I love that. Sometimes it's easy to forget that.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes if we're not conscious of it, our thoughts can just go off in all different directions. So we really have to control our thoughts and implement those affirmations.
So the Earth Diet, it sounds pretty self-explanatory, but can you just lay out for us what exactly is the Earth Diet?
So basically, the Earth Diet and the book, the concept is just to get back to nature and focus on the earth and focus on everything that nature is producing for us naturally. So things like fruits, vegetables, nuts, berries, and then organic meats for the meat eater.
I love that. Yeah. So a very real food diet, getting rid of the processed foods and the refined foods and sticking to what Mother Nature gave us.
Yeah, and sticking to foods that we were intended to eat, foods that God gave us that are so, so good for us and taste so good. Like fruit is nature's candy and just such a good treat for us. Yeah.
Exactly. So, of course, I'm 100% on board with all of your, the Earth Diet in terms of food. But one thing that I really love about the Earth Diet is that it goes way beyond just food. And I think very early on for a lot of people, myself included, it sounds like for you, when we start embarking on a healthier lifestyle, we start with food, and that is an excellent place to start. But then we realize that it's actually so much more than that. So what are some of these non-food factors that also affect our health, and what should we be doing beyond just thinking about food?
Yeah, so, food is a spiritual practice for sure, and food for me enhanced my spirituality, my mental state, and my emotional state. So I started with food, and then what I found is that food naturally changed my mental state, and I was able to think more positive naturally. So, for example, when we start to eat more plant-based foods and green foods and vegetables, we start to think, wow, I'm so healthy. I'm putting so much healthy food into my body. This must be positive. This must be doing so much good stuff for us. And so we start to just think more positive naturally. So that's definitely a part of the journey. And with the Earth Diet too, the more foods we eat straight from nature, we become more in harmony with nature, and we become in more harmony with ourselves, with our spiritual connection to source energy, and with our cravings as well. So everything just harmonizes itself. So along with those affirmations, when we start eating those healthy foods, we naturally do just get those positive thoughts a lot more effortlessly, like they just come. But also in both my books, The Earth Diet and 10-Minute Recipes, I have published affirmations. So we can force the process or start to implement positive thoughts, even if they're not there yet. So I'm big into affirmations. So for example, one affirmation that I love to use is I am safe and I am loved, and it's safe for me to be alive. So whenever, I'm out and about in the city or wherever, if I start to think negative or just start to just feel not so positive, I'll just force myself to think those positive affirmations right away, and it does make me feel better immediately.
So are you saying affirmations every single day?
Oh yeah, every single day, as many as we can cram in all throughout the day when we're doing dishes or, when I'm making juice or when I'm making food, I'll be like, wow, this is so good. This is so positive. I'm nourishing my body. The intention is to love my body, nourish my body, because I find when we don't force ourselves to think, then our thoughts can have us. So we can get so caught and lost in the world, especially social media. We can start firing off all these crazy thoughts. And so it's just good to bring it back and control our thoughts and to actually implement intentional affirmations in our mind. And the science behind that is the neural pathways in the brain, which I find fascinating to see images of that. And Tony Robbins talks a lot about the neural pathways in the brain, so that the more positive thoughts we have in the brain, that will become our autopilot, and our mind will just automatically go to positivity, and it'll just fire off more and more positive thoughts rather than firing off a negative part in the brain.
Right. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I know Tony talks a lot about not even just affirmations, but also doing incantations, which is essentially saying the affirmations out loud. And as one of his retreats or weekend things, he actually has people walk through the streets shouting these incantations over and over again. So that's quite interesting. So then I'm just curious, like I try to, when I'm on the treadmill, I will repeat affirmations over and over again. But when I'm not on the treadmill, I don't think to do it usually. So do you set aside a certain amount of time in the day, in the morning, or before night that you actually do it? Or is it just like, okay, whenever you have a free second and your mind is wandering or you're thinking negative thoughts, and that's when you do it?
A bit of both. Lately, I've been setting the timer on my phone for 2 minutes or even just 5 minutes and sitting in front of the mirror and saying them, looking at myself in the mirror, saying the affirmations, because I think that's really powerful and transformative. So I do want to make that more of my practice, like every day of 2 to 5 minutes, and then just implement it throughout the day whenever I can.
And so what would you say for someone who's trying to get a little healthier, maybe lose some weight or just improve their eating habits? What would you say some good affirmations would be?
One would be, every day I'm getting healthier and healthier. I'm getting healthier and healthier. With every meal, I'm getting healthier and healthier. Another one would be, it's my God-given right to enjoy my dream health and my ideal health. So all excess weight and all disease will be healed every time I nourish my body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. I know when I'm coaching people, I find that many, many people, especially women, we do have a lot of negative self-talk. And, we would never say something rude, or, sometimes we would say something rude about someone else. But, when it comes to us, we're, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that, I'm never going to get a boyfriend. All of these negative things that we say to ourselves, I feel like it's a little bit easier said than done. Like, do you have any other tips for cutting this negative self-talk?
Yeah, well, I know it's a choice. And I also know at the end of the day that we actually don't have a choice to be negative, because it's just not an option. Or we don't have an option to be negative because that's just not going to get us anywhere good. So I know at the end of the day, we might look in the mirror and say, okay, I'm aging, my hair doesn't look right, I'm weighing a bit extra pounds, and so that doesn't feel good. But then at the end of the day, it's up to us to turn that around and go, okay, well, you know what? I can start eating more green foods that will help my hair. I can start working out more. I can start eating healthy, nourishing myself, loving myself. I can start meditating, maybe, so I don't care as much about the craziness and the critical part of this physical world. So there's lots of different tools to keep us in that positive space, but I just don't see being negative as an option at all. It's just not conducive, and it won't get us anywhere. I've been down that path. So I know, and it only leads to a hell pit. It leads to destruction, and it's not an option. And it really is a choice for us to eat good foods and to think good thoughts and to have a spiritual practice. And then that's how we can live in a really healthy, happy state.
Right. I feel like, just from personal experience as well, it's like when you get into this sort of cycle of thinking negative thoughts, everything becomes negative. Everything you do, your entire day is bad, right? Yeah. It's like when you get up on the wrong side of the bed, as they say. But actually, as Tony Robbins says, you can change your mind in an instant. Mm-hmm. You don't need to do 10 years of therapy. You don't need to go on a retreat or anything like this. All you really need to do is decide that you want to make that change. Mm-hmm. And once you do, it is so freeing. And really making the choice to think positively. And whenever you do catch yourself thinking something negative, literally stop yourself midway and replace it with a positive thought. How can you look at it in a better light? If you feel like you can't do something, okay, figure out how you can. Don't use that as an excuse. So really, it is just a way of training your brain to look at the possibility and the opportunity, and not to focus and dwell on, why you can or what's bad or what's negative.
Yeah, well said.
Yes. So Liana is actually probably the most positive person I know. And I really love being around you because you are so uplifting, and it is contagious when you are, happy and positive. And personally, I'm not always happy and positive. I'm definitely working on it. It's a practice. And I really have recently made that decision that, okay, everything I'm just going to look at positively. I kind of took what you said and said, okay, positivity is not a choice. Like, it is the only way.
Yeah.
And so I'm living by that, and I'm actually really enjoying it and not getting frustrated and everything. It's quite interesting when I found myself kind of like I don't know, every once in a while, it's like you kind of look at all the bad side of everything. Like, if someone does something to you or whatever, then everything becomes negative. And then you kind of just get into this sort of space where nothing seems to be going your way. But then by changing my mindset, all of a sudden, literally within hours, everything starts going the other way.
Yeah, it's a perception shift. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think it's when you have that positivity, you do just really attract more of the positivity, and you attract what your vibe is, really.
Well, yeah. And also, like, two different people could get the same package in the mail, right? And one person could be like, oh, this is amazing. I got this package. This is so great. I love it. And then the other person could be like, oh, this is so annoying. This package is lame. Like, I wish I got something better. So it's just having that perception.
Yeah, everything always comes back to perspective. So speaking of, these non-food factors, another part of you that I think is so nice and refreshing, because you don't really see it as much, in this present time, especially not in New York City, is that you also have a very strong spiritual practice. So what role does spirituality play in healing and for you?
Yeah, well, I was so immersed in this business world with my blog and my books and my sponsorship deals with the organic companies I work with. And it was fun for a long time, and it was enjoyable. And I felt like I was getting validation from people and from my success online. But then after a while, that just became unfulfilling. So I started thinking, like there has to be something more. There has to be something deeper that I can feel from within, rather than having to get my joy and my validation from outside. So I started to really dive into the spiritual realm and find this balance of living in the spiritual realm and living in the physical realm of business. And we want to have our finances together and our taxes together. And, we want to get on in this world. So, and then also just feel that fountain of like deep peace and joy that's also there available to us in every single moment. So I had to go and find that. And I did that through meditation and yoga. And also, I believe in Jesus. And so a lot of prayer as well. And that really, really helped me. And that's where I get my love and my peace from, because I'm in this world, but I'm also have a spiritual practice. So that's definitely a good balance for me.
And did you always have a spiritual practice, or is it something that you found after you kind of just felt frustrated with life?
Yeah, I feel like there's a theme in my life of hitting a hard spot or hitting a rock bottom spot before it forces me to stop and turn away from the path I was going down and turn to another path. But one thing I've found is that, human beings, we're all such intelligent, amazing species. Like, we are more powerful than we're led to believe, for sure. But also there's this greater intelligence, without a doubt, source energy, God, whatever you want to call it, like that does exist. And I think that's what keeps us more like on edge, or for me, it makes life more exciting because I can control my day and say, okay, here's my schedule. I'm going to go here, there. I'm going to meet with Maria. I'm going to do the podcast. I'm going to go here and get my nails done at this vegan salon. And that's cool. I can plan it. But there are those little miracles and surprises in between that God gives us every day that I'm always on the lookout for. So that keeps me really engaged and wanting to live like a long life forever. And also I'm realistic in the sense of like, okay, I'm 30 now and I'm going to be aging, 40, 50, 60, 70. So I'm preparing for that, and also preparing for like the body is going to change and the energy is going to change, and, just trying to be really aware with it so that the older I get, my spirituality and in myself gets stronger and stronger.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think, I think it is really important to have some spiritual practice, whether it is something sort of agnostic like meditation or yoga, or it is something more religious, whatever really relates to
whatever
you.
works. Yeah, because I wasn't always a believer in Jesus, and I don't want to put myself into a category of religion because I know there's been some corrupt things that have gone on in the institutions. But when I grew up in outback Australia, the Indigenous people, we learned from them about source energy and spirit, and nature was God. So for us, food was God. Like every time we eat, we're eating God. and that's supporting our existence and our life. And then I discovered, different spiritual things along the way. So yeah, really whatever works for you. Because for my sister, she loves, Gabby Bernstein, and she loves the universe. And so when I talk to her about, asking the universe and thanking the universe.
Yeah. So what would you say if you had one tip or one piece of advice for people who want to live a healthier or happier life? What would that one thing be?
Well, straight away I go to food. I just say, find your medicine. And for me, cacao is my medicine, like chocolate, like real chocolate. And that's really what got me out of the dark place or the rock bottom place and me being so sick. That was the one thing that I was addicted to the most, that I craved the most. So I say, remove your biggest obstacle first. And once you remove your biggest obstacle, what is your biggest block in your life? Because once you remove that, everything else and the other obstacles are a lot easier to face. So once I replaced all the conventional chocolate that I was eating the chocolate that had white sugar, it had preservatives, it had soy lecithin, which is a genetically modified organism, and then it had dairy. So all of that was just so unhealthy. So once I started making my own chocolate using cacao powder and then honey or maple syrup and some nuts or coconut flour, that was a major upgrade, and that healed my body, and I shed a lot of excess weight. And I was just so relieved and excited that I could eat chocolate in a medicinal way, in a very healthy way. So whatever it is that you're craving or is your biggest obstacle in terms of food, let us know, because Maria and I for sure could give you so many swaps or alternatives or upgrades that will just literally change your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Liana has a ton of amazing recipes. She just made some chocolate cheesecake the other day that looked absolutely insane. I need to try that. But yeah, I think you make a good point. And this is something I always tell people as well, is that, if you want to eat healthier food, it doesn't mean you can only eat salad and, kale all day long. You can find healthier swaps for all of your favorite foods. You can upgrade the ingredients in them just like you did with the chocolate. Choose a better natural sweetener, get rid of the fillers and the artificial things and the things that you don't need. And you can still enjoy the flavors and tastes that you like, but it's just an upgraded version of it. So that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, and there's an upgrade for everything, which is why I loved creating the Earth Diet, because it felt like I closed the door on junk foods and I opened up this whole new door and this whole new chapter of this Garden of Eden, this abundance of all this natural foods that we can take fruit smoothies and make them into roll-ups, like cherry roll-ups, and then squish them to make little candy and little gummy bears.
How do you make that?
So you just blend up some cherries, for example, in a Vitamix. And so you have a cherry puree or a smoothie. Then you layer it on a baking paper and put it in a dehydrator for 14 hours. And then you get this cherry roll-up. And then you can squish it up into little balls. And it's like a natural, very, very natural one-ingredient gummy bear that's literally just made with cherries.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, that recipe's in the 10-minute book because it takes less than 10 minutes to blend it up, and then you have to dehydrate it.
Yeah, so interesting. So besides for these cherry gummies, what are some of your other favorite recipes from either of the books?
I would say either the cashew cheesecake, the chocolate balls, or the cookie dough, or the chicken nuggets. Those are the ones that I made the most in the beginning. But I would say the chocolate balls are probably the one I've made the most and the one that really put me on the map in the health world, per se. It's a 3-ingredient chocolate ball recipe. You've probably heard of it by now. It's posted in a million places, right? It's so simple. It's just 3 ingredients, cacao powder, and then almond flour or any other nut flour. If you have an allergy to nuts, you can use tiger nut flour. You could also do coconut flour, and then a sweetener, so honey or maple syrup. And that is a base recipe for raw chocolate brownies. 3 ingredients, and then you can add other things to it. So you could add vanilla, some real salt, you could add peanut butter, almond butter, you could roll it in coconut, you could add chocolate chips. But that's definitely my most favorite recipe.
Yeah, you're making me hungry now. So I'll link to that recipe in the show notes.
Awesome.
For sure.
Cool.
And besides, real foods, are there any supplements that you take?
Yes, I would say I take a bunch of different supplements which are really helpful, but one that I think is has been so key to my healing and has helped a lot of people is bentonite clay. And bentonite clay has a lot of minerals, and it's volcanic ash. It comes straight from the earth, and it's when volcanoes erupted like 2 million years ago, and then the lava broke down to volcanic ash. And it's been food grade, so it's been purified, and I just love the idea of that and the healing elements of that. And bentonite clay has magnetic properties, so when we consume it, it goes into the body and it puts minerals into our body, but it also attracts little toxins and parasites and worms. And when I was really sick, I had a live blood test done, and I could see the parasites crawling around in my blood. They were invading my blood. It was so disgusting. That's the day I started drinking bentonite clay and absorbing the parasites. So I just love using bentonite clay as a supplement. And then also it's great because we can make it into a face mask, and it's like nature's Botox, and it just helps to draw out impurities and just keep our face, really beautiful and get rid of lines and stuff like that. So I would say bentonite clay.
I do. I really like bentonite clay as well. I do use it sometimes as a mask, but I do like ingesting it. And I find I don't take it all the time or on any, with any sort of regularity. But when I do take it, I do feel like my skin looks amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it makes us glow. It takes like a layer of our skin off. So it's definitely way healthier than a chemical peel or Botox. And in fact, I can feel my skin now. Like you just feel like a buildup when you just need a good exfoliant. So I'm definitely due for a clay mask, and just to take that layer of skin off, just a nice spring cleanse.
But I feel like even just ingesting it, my skin looks great too.
Yeah, because it cleans out from the inside
body.
out and makes us glow from the inside out.
Right. And where do you usually get your bentonite clay from?
So I get my bentonite clay and, actually all the ingredients to all of my recipes, like cacao powder and almond butter and maple syrup, from Vitacost.
I love Vitacost.
Woohoo! So Vitacost definitely is a game changer. I found out about it years ago, but it's the cheapest place to buy all organic, natural supplements, pet food, baby food, and food ingredients online in the USA. So yeah, Vitacost.com, and then you guys could use the code EarthDiet when you check out for an additional 10% off your order. So there's a little extra hookup for you. But yeah, free shipping straight to your door. It's just so convenient and so much cheaper.
I use your code all the time,
Yay!
by the way. So yeah, I buy all of my dry goods, my oil, my spices, my snacks, my flours, like all of that stuff. I buy nuts and seeds. I buy on Vitacost because it is so much cheaper.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Liana, and sharing all of your insights. I will have everything that we talked about. Any links will all be in the show notes. And I think we should go make some chocolate brownies.
Woo, let's do it. Yay.
Thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed and got value from this episode, I'd be so grateful if you can take just 1 minute to leave an honest review on iTunes, as that will help us reach more people and get incredible guests on the show. To say thank you, email a screenshot of your review to info@mariamarlowe.com, and we'll send you a free 3-day healthy eating sugar detox meal plan. After each and every episode, I encourage you to come say hi on Instagram @Maria Marlowe, that's MariaMarlowe, or in the private Happier and Healthier podcast group on Facebook. In both of these places, we can continue the conversation about today's episode, so come and share what you think. If you want more, you can also head to mariamarlowe.com, where you'll find tons of healthy recipes, meal plans, and resources to help you live your healthiest and happiest life. Lastly, if there's someone you know who'd enjoy this podcast, make their day, and mine, and send it to them now. Until next time, don't forget, health and happiness are a choice. Our thoughts become our reality, so make sure you're thinking up a masterpiece.